Ever looked at a massive company's financial report? You know, the ones with billions of dollars in revenue, and just wondered, is any of this actually real? It's a fair question, and the answer all comes down to one word: trust. But this isn't about blind faith, it's about a system. So today, let's pull back the curtain on the ultimate corporate watchdog, the auditor.
I mean, really think about it for a second. Whether you're an investor, an employee, or just a regular person, we all kind of depend on those numbers being legit. So who's the one making sure companies aren't just, making things up?
Well, that's where the auditor comes in. Think of them as the referee in a high-stakes corporate game. Their job is to be totally impartial, look at the books, and call it straight. Is this a fair game or not? Their independence is literally everything. So how does this all-important ref even get picked? It all starts with the appointment process. And right from the get-go, the rules are super specific, especially when a company is hiring its very first auditor.
Okay, check this out, because this is where you see a really big difference. For a regular company, the board of directors gets the first crack at it. If they can't figure it out in 30 days, it goes to the shareholders. But look at a government company. The first call isn't made by the company at all. It's made by the Comptroller and Auditor General of India, the CNAG. That's a whole other layer of public oversight from day one.
So after that first time, the process gets a bit more routine. The company's audit committee does all the homework. They run what's called an MCQ check, looking for any past misconduct, checking if the auditor's experience is commensurate with the job, and of course verifying their qualifications. They then recommend someone to the board. The board can say yes, or they can send it back for another look. But you know who has the final say? The owners of the company, the shareholders. They're the ones who cast the deciding vote.
All right, so you've hired your auditor, job done, right? Well, not so fast. Now comes the really crucial part. How do you make sure they stay independent and don't get a little too cozy with the company they're supposed to be watching? The law has some very, very strict rules about this.
This number right here is key. 10 years. For an audit firm, that's the absolute maximum time they can audit one large company in a row. The whole idea is to stop them from getting too comfortable or relying too much on a single client. And for an individual auditor, the leash is even shorter. They only get one 5-year term.
And this timeline breaks it all down perfectly. A firm can do its first 5-year term, no problem. They can even get reappointed for a second 5-year run. But after that 10th year, boom, they are out. They have to take a mandatory 5-year cooling off period. It's like they're in the penalty box, forced to sit on the sidelines to break any ties that might have formed. Only after those 5 years are up can they even be considered for the job again.
But that rotation stuff, that's just one piece of the puzzle. The real goal is to avoid any conflict of interest, and the list of don'ts is pretty long. I mean, it's common sense, right? You can't be an employee and an auditor. You can't own a chunk of the company. You can't owe them a bunch of money. And if your dad is a director at the company, sorry, you can't be its auditor. Simple as that.
And the law is pretty smart about people trying to find workarounds. You can't just have the lead auditor from firm A, which is now in its cooling off period, quit, join firm B, and then waltz right back in to audit the same company. Nope. That cooling off status follows the individual partner, and it disqualifies their new firm from taking on that audit. Okay, so what happens when it's time for a change? An auditor's tenure can end in one of two ways. They can resign, or they can be removed. And trust me, neither is as simple as just saying, I'm out.
So if an auditor decides to resign, they can't just ghost the company. They are legally required to file a formal statement within 30 days explaining exactly why they're leaving. This is huge because it prevents them from quietly slipping away if they discover something sketchy. It holds them accountable.
And yeah, this rule has some serious teeth. We're not talking about a slap on the wrist. If an auditor bails without filing that statement, they could be on the hook for a penalty that goes as high as 2 lakh rupees. It sends a clear message. Your responsibility doesn't end just because you quit.
But what if the company wants the auditor out? Well, if you thought resigning was a process, firing one is a whole other beast. First, the board has to pass a resolution. Then they have to get approval from the central government, the government. And even after that, they need a special resolution from the shareholders, which usually means getting a whopping 75% of them to agree. It is designed to be incredibly difficult to fire the referee. So, we've walked through all these complex rules for hiring, rotating, and getting rid of auditors. You might be wondering, wow, why is this all so complicated? Well, it all boils down to one simple, incredibly powerful idea.
Because trust is the currency that our entire financial system runs on. Simple as that. When that trust disappears, markets can collapse.
We've all seen the scandals. These rules, as detailed and maybe even tedious as they seem, are the architecture of that trust. They're what make an auditor's signature on a financial report actually mean something.
And that leaves us with one last big question to think about. We've got this incredibly detailed framework, all designed to protect the integrity of the system. But in the real world, with immense corporate pressure and just human nature, can a set of rules ever really, truly guarantee independence? That's the question that sits at the very heart of this entire discussion.